Hello and welcome. Frank Nitty once again, and I'm here. Here we are again, talking about another poorly end to the season. However, this time, at least not in the playoffs, but the regular season. The Green Bay Packers finish the 2022 season with an 8-9 record, missing out on the playoffs for the first time since Mike McCarthy was fired all the way back in 2019. Just my overall thoughts on this season. Look, man, this season was doomed from the start. Green Bay showed you what type of team they were at the start of the year in that horrible season opener against the Vikings. They would clean up the mess the next couple of weeks, only to go into a horrendous month stretch of losing 5 straight games before defeating the Cowboys, losing again to the Titans and Eagles. They would eventually go on a 4-game win streak with things pretty much all going in their way to possibly still make the playoffs, but ultimately ending at home against the Detroit Lions. With the loss, they got swept by Detroit. They were 1-1 against the Vikings, and they swept the Bears in the division. The Packers couldn't have asked for a more better scenario to make the playoffs, despite never once looking like a playoff team all year. I mean, this team did not deserve to be in the postseason at all. And if not for losing this game, we most certainly would have gotten destroyed by the 49ers again. But still, at home to end the season, this team resorted back to the same era-written football. It was the perfect ending for a team that was never meant to be great. Going up against a 32nd ranked defense, the offense failed to convert on many third downs, even stupidly going for it on 4th down early in the game, failing that. Outside of David Bakhtiari, the offensive line was terrible. The run game never fully got going. Aaron Jones fumbled when we had a chance to possibly go up by 10 at the end of the first half. They were dropped passes by Allen Lazard, 2 by Romeo Doubs. A.J. Dillon even dropped a check down. And just like all season long, we were just terrible in the red zone, kicking 4 field goals and missing 1. Aaron Rodgers on a potential game-winning drive just shucks it up on a 3rd down blitz and just gets picked off. The defense could not make any stops when it mattered. Per usual, missing tackles. Russell Douglas made another dumb penalty, and both our first-round rookies also made bonehead plays that pretty much sealed our fate. Okay? So this was a total team collapse, and that's why I'm not coming on here looking to just blame Aaron Rodgers, because yes, he didn't play great, but like I said, a fumble, drop passes, and poor offensive line didn't help offensively either. So this wasn't all on him. They lost like the poorly coached, undisciplined, piss poor play sons of bitches they've been all season long. Okay, despite both the Cowboys and the Seahawks both collapsing and pretty much handing you a chance to make the postseason, you still failed. So they deserve to be on the couch yet again, watching better teams compete for a championship. This season was a nightmare to watch as the Packers, and as a Packers fan, and just thank the heaven that it's finally over. Just thank heavens that it's finally over, man. Just awful season. Aaron Rodgers. So now that the season is a wrap, once again, what is to come next year? What's to come next season starts with Aaron Rodgers. Does the team want him back or no? Do they believe he still gives us the best chance to win? And if so, what does that mean for Jordan Love? Does he want to sit behind Rodgers for the 4th season in a row, or does he demand a trade and go elsewhere? We'll just have to wait and see. In my opinion, Rodgers is probably on his last leg. I believe he can still play, but the window of opportunity for him to win another championship is pretty much closed. Okay, this team is just not put together to win a Super Bowl. It just isn't. And you blew too many chances in the past. 2 straight 13-win seasons with home field advantage, and you still couldn't get it done. We're not going to talk about all the other playoff failures in the past, but just recently. For the 3rd season in a row, you walk off Lambeau Field as a loser. That window is just closed. It just is. There's just too much talented football teams right now with younger quarterbacks who are all hungry to win titles. Okay, Rodgers isn't going to have the same luck and luxury as a Tom Brady, where he can just hop to another team with a ton of talent and compete for a Super Bowl in his mid-40s. And with Rodgers turning 40 at the end of this year, coming off his worst season stat-wise, even with 17 games he started, Rodgers still threw a career low for 3,695 yards. Career lows in passer rating and quarterback rating. Couple that with his most interceptions since 2008. I mean, it was horrible to watch. This was not the back-to-back MVP we saw this year. Last couple of years. Occasionally, we saw flashes of the old Aaron Rodgers, but he did not live up to what is expected of him. Yes, I know he played with an injured hand since the Giants game, but like I said in my last video, if he kept playing, just how big of a factor was that thumb really? if he still kept going out there and playing. Maybe you can call him selfish for doing so, but his thumb couldn't have been that bad if he still continued to play for the rest of the season. So Aaron, so if Aaron comes back next season, he needs to make it his last season and move on. Get younger at quarterback for the future of this team. And that's no disrespect to Rodgers, as he's done so much for this franchise, keeping us relevant after Brett Favre. But whatever decision the team makes, it has to be the future of this franchise, especially since we picked midway through the draft this April. They're just going to have to look at that. If you ask me, I still think that Aaron Rodgers still gives us the best chance to win and compete, as I don't fully trust in what we have in Jordan Love, but in his defense, we haven't really seen that much of him. From that one game he played against the Eagles coming in for Rodgers, he looked good. I said that. But is he going to look that way for an entire 17-year season? Is it an entire 17-game season? Excuse me. Is he going to look that way all the time? I don't really think he is. But you never know. He might surprise you if they decide to move on from Rodgers. But like I said, it wasn't all Aaron Rodgers' fault. I mean, obviously this season failure isn't all his fault. He didn't get any favors from the likes of the organization once again, not doing a good job in replacing his number one wide receiver, Davante Adams, who, despite also having a losing season with the Raiders, he still put up Pro Bowl numbers, still producing. They did a terrible job replacing Davante Adams and making sure Rodgers had the right guys to throw to. They just didn't. They once again drafted on defense, using both first-round picks on Quay Walker and Devontae Wyatt. Both of these guys did not deliver. They waited till the second round to finally draft a wide receiver in Christian Watson, coming out of college with drop problems that immediately was shown to start the season, and he would be a complete non-factor until halfway through the season. His story is an intriguing one, to say the least. I mean, having absolutely no significant role in the offense till halfway through the season, Watson eventually emerged as our big play threat on offense, finishing his rookie season on a good note. Romeo Doubs was pretty much the opposite. He had a strong start this season and then finished poorly. But this is what Rodgers had to work with. An injury-prone Sammy Watkins didn't last. We got as much as we were going to get out of Randall Cobb, and Allen Lazard, like I said, is not a number one target. He'd be a number 3 or 4 on most teams. Aaron Jones managed to go over 1,000 yards despite battling injuries. And A.J. Dillon, A.J. Dillon is just a downgrade from Jamal Williams. We were a top 10, despite being top 5 in rush offense, that still didn't matter in the end. They didn't come through this past Sunday night. Not to mention being one of the worst teams in the red zone, 24th in red zone efficiency. That first game against the Lions was a good example. Or the game before that against the Miami Dolphins, where Keyshawn Nixon takes it all the way inside the 10-yard line. You still come away with only 3 effing points. And then the same thing with the Lions again this past Sunday night. Matt LaFleur's coaching was piss poor. Why does it take so long for him and the rest of the staff to realize Amari Rodgers was not the answer at returning kicks? The difference between him and Nixon is night and day. And they waited too long to cut his ass after ultimately costing us at least 2 games this season. Another reason is he did an awful job utilizing our tight ends in the passing game. Robert Tonyan's name was barely called despite his excellent 2021 season and last season unfortunately ending due to injury. At his age, it became clear that Rodgers couldn't be the main call for the offense, yet that's clearly what they were still expecting, especially with how poorly they did requiring the right help. So like I said, this team never had a chance. Matt LaFleur, he's not going anywhere, but how many times has the dude been completely outcoached? How many times did his play calling put us in bad situations? Situational football being a non-factor, being below average on third downs. And it shows what little control he has over this football team that a lot of times due to the fact the behavior of certain guys, especially on defense. Like I said, again, they drafted on defense like most of us should have known they were going to do. Quay Walker, Devontae Wyatt did not live up to expectations for first-round picks. Yes, it's their rookie year, so it's kind of unfair to go hard on those guys, but I'm sorry, they just did not deliver. They didn't deliver. Wyatt, you hardly ever heard his name, and Quay Walker, he's going to be remembered more this season for his emotional reactions to training staff more than anything he did on the field. People are going to remember him more for getting rejected twice. First game against the Bills and this final game against the Lions. And that's what people are going to remember Quay Walker for in his rookie season. And rightfully so, because when he was out there, the guy was pretty much playing just average football. Somebody needs to get his ass in check before Quay comes into the next season, possibly costing us even more. So overall, once again, we got nothing out of defensive rookies. Wasting draft picks on defense, and just once again, just not living up to expectations. Showing that then these guys will most likely also be gone in the next couple of years. All the goddamn hype, all the hype and money spent on players on defense going into this season just to be coached by that bum Joe Barry and being below average just isn't going to fly in this league. Smart Packer fans knew not to buy into that hype, man. I sure as hell didn't. Just because you look good in practice against our average offense, it meant you were going to be dominant. What a goddamn joke. Okay, a joke is what I would describe it. They set the bar too high for themselves and never reached it. They gave up too many yards per play, a lot due to terrible tackling and soft zone coverage Joe Barry likes to run. I mean, how many times did the opposing team need only a few yards for first down and our defensive backs are lined up about 10 yards away? Just soft. We lost Rashawn Gary to injury, so that completely killed our pass rush. Guys like Rasul Douglas never played to the money spent to re-sign him. Donard Savage was rightfully benched, another first-round talent failure. Jair Alexander had some games where he didn't play well, but still, he was still our best corner by default, and ultimately making his second Pro Bowl. The saving grace for these guys down the stretch was creating a lot of turnovers, but against quarterbacks like Baker Mayfield, Tua Tagovailoa, and even Kirk Cousins to a degree, it's nothing really to celebrate over. So overall, Joe Barry's defense was mediocre, and I don't endorse bringing him back next season. But it's obvious that's what they're going to do, and because it's obvious that's what they're going to do, and there's absolutely no plans on getting rid of him. But just whatever, man. The hell with this season, man. I'm just let's just be thankful that it's finally over. As far as next season goes, all I can say is this coming draft, this team desperately needs to look for some help at positions like safety, tight end, and definitely the offensive line. Also maybe invest and look into some edge rushers. You can't rely on Rashawn Gary being the only guy that can consistently create pressure. As Preston Smith, he's just getting old and doesn't consistently produce. The offensive lineman is a huge prospect, as pass protection, like I said, all season long was atrocious. You got David Bakhtiari, and you got all the rest of these guys, man. The offensive line was just piss poor all season long. Definitely need to look at that. A potential first round, second round pick to fix this offensive line, man. It's bad. All right, you already got an aging quarterback behind center, and possibly next year you need to. And you already got an aging quarterback behind center, who's only getting older, who's most likely going to still be behind center next season. You need to protect him. You need to protect Aaron Rodgers. Period. Tight end also, because if they don't re-sign Robert Tonyan, it's going to be a huge position need. You can't rely on Mercedes Lewis. He's probably going to retire now. And he's not using the passing game either way. He's just out there to block, which he does a great job of. But still, we need a tight end that we can utilize consistently on the offense if Tonyan isn't going to be the guy. So to me, those are the two most important positions as far as offense goes. Offensive lineman and tight end for sure. You can make a strong case for wide receiver also, since I doubt Randall Cobb or Allen Lazard will return next year. So you need to do what you got to do to replace those guys either in the draft or free agency. And we all know this team does not like to do anything as far as free agency in that regard. So it's going to have to be in a draft. Watson and Romeo Doubs cannot be your two main guys coming into next season. They cannot be your two main guys targeted next season. Both coming into their sophomore years. That just can't happen. But anyway, we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens, man. Thank you to anyone who watched this whole video. And I guess I had a lot to say. But just overall, just a nightmare season. I'm just happy it's over. And as much as I hate talking about our failures every year, at the end of the day, I love football. And I'm always going to cheer for my team, even in disappointment. Till this fall, I'm out of here. Peace.